Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel, and today in this video, yes, I have my microphone on a floppy disk, but that's not the important thing. In this video, we're going to be taking a look at this. This is a BlueSCSI device, which is a modern replacement hard drive emulator for vintage computers and various other machines that use the SCSI-based interface for their hard drive and storage. So let's take a look at this thing and, well, see how it works. So the BlueSCSI is very similar to the various other modern drive replacements for vintage computers, much like the SP to SD device here for the Apple II GS, or the Disk 2 emulator for the Apple II 8-bit line, or the Commodore's SD to IEC device, and the XT to IDE interface here. But in every way that it's similar to those other devices, it's also very different from all those other devices as well, especially in some of the ways that it's used and utilized. For example, the SD to IEC device can only emulate, to a point, the 1541 disk drive for the Commodore 64 and VIC-20. It really can't emulate a 1571 or any other type of drive like a cassette drive. Or the Disk 2 emulator, which only emulates a Disk 2 or Apple II floppy drive. It can't emulate anything else. And it's even vastly different than the XT to IDE interface here, in that this mainly converts the 8-bit signaling on the PC bus to something that a 16-bit capable CF card can handle. In fact, it's more closely similar to the SP2SD device, only in that it uses a very small microcontroller to convert the necessary signaling that the Apple II GS SmartPort connector puts out so that it can utilize an SD card as mass storage device by using pre-made disk images. And that's the same thing that the BlueSCSI uses. It uses a very small microcontroller. In this case, this is the BlueSCSI V2, which uses a PicoW, in order to convert the necessary signaling to convert it from an SD card, which uses SATA-based protocols, to the SCSI interface, which is about as varied as, well, all the other connectors that vintage computers use. Now, I do want to mention real quick that no, this is not the only SD to SCSI interface out there. There is a, well, SD to SCSI interface called the SD to SCSI, and there's also ZuluSCSI. All three of the devices are basically very similar in what they are meant for, in that they can utilize SD cards as a modern drive replacement for SCSI-based systems, but what makes them different is the special sauce firmware and some of the hardware that they use. So it really depends on what your specific use case is. And even with that, there's a few different versions of the BlueSCSI. There's actually 3 different versions. This is the external 25-pin style. There's an internal 50-pin style, and then a external Centronics style, which right before I recorded this video, I actually realized that the Centronics style one was kind of, sort of, I think, meant for some of the older machines like the PDP series, the DEC, and the VAX, because I think those use Centronics-based SCSI ports. Don't quote me on that. I'm only going off of like a single forum post that I saw when I was looking up Centronics SCSI ports. However, for the scope of this video, we're going to be talking about the BlueSCSI V2, specifically the one I have here in my hand from Joe's Computer Museum. Now, you can get these basically anywhere online. There's several places that are selling these. Find on eBay, Tindy. There's an actual website that has a listing of all the sellers that are selling these things. You can either get them as full pre-assembled units that you just put an SD card, put the image on the SD card, and plug it in, and away you go. This one here is a kit that I actually have to solder together. There's some sites where it actually has a bill of materials that you can, use to order any of the supporting chips, capacitors, resistors, the PicoW, how to flash it, ordering the PCBs with the Gerber files from PCBWay. I went the route of a kit that was mostly put together. I just need to do some soldering to it. That's mainly because I need more practice soldering. Anyone who knows my soldering, who's seen my soldering skills in a couple previous videos, know that I am not the best at soldering, which is why I don't do a lot of up-close shots. With that being said, I do want to mention that this is not a review or critique of Joe's Computer Museum's version here. This is more of just a broad overlook of the BlueSCSI as a whole. Not any specific review of the one I got from Joe's Computer Museum. This is not, he did not send this to me or anything like that. So any critiques or criticisms that I might make, take it with a grain of salt, because your mileage may vary. So we're going to open this thing up, take a look at it, see what's all in here in the bag, get a solder together, and then we're going to, well, send it. Just try it and see if it works. Okay, and here's the BlueSCSI V2. This is the kit version, 25-pin external with the Pico 2. And here's a site to find all the useful info on this particular version. Yeah, ignore the splotches on the label. When I was prepping for this shot, it fell off my desk and landed on my greasy work boots. Here we see the neat blue and white casing with sticker. Gotta love the merch. And here's the device pre-assembled. It's just not soldered yet. This is the kinda hasty looking opening for the SD card and the cutout for the USB cord. And here you can see how it loosely snaps together. Yeah, it's not super impressive. Maybe it's just my model here, or this particular one, but it just seems a little loose to me. And here's all the internals for the project. The 25-pin, the main PCB with the surface mount stuff pre-soldered, and the Pico 2W. The header is already soldered. And the very clean designed PCB board. And the passive SD slot. I'm not a fan of these at all. I would have preferred the clicky style ones, but as long as it works, I mean, I can't be too picky. All right, let's get it soldered. Okay, so we're here in the computer room, as you can see, and I have the BlueSCSI V2 here, fully soldered, the flux cleaned off, and it's ready to go. I have a micro SD card. It's a 8 GB one with an image I downloaded offline. I'll talk about that here in a second. The Pico W here is pre-flashed from Joe's Computer Museum. So that's one less headache that I had to deal with and that you'll have to deal with if you go this route. Obviously, yes, it's not too difficult to program a Pico 2W with the correct firmware. I just realized before I soldered this, I was talking about this before. Did I accidentally call it Joe's Computer Lab? It's supposed to be Joe's Computer Museum. I need to look back at my footage. I hope I didn't. If I did, I'm sorry, Joe, that I messed up. It's Joe's Computer Museum is where I got this one. Now, unfortunately, I do not have any footage of me soldering this together. Been doing this for 6 years. You think I would have caught this. When I moved my camera over to the bench to start soldering this thing together, at some point, I guess I didn't really pay attention. Either my camera was turned off or it died from a battery going dead. So the footage never got recorded. But you're not missing much. Just go back and look at my SP to SD video to see the crappy way I solder. So you're probably wondering when I said image, what image did I put on this micro SD card here? Well, if you go to the website for BlueSCSI V2, there's a complete tutorial of not only how to use this thing and get it set up, but there's also tutorials of where to get the floppy or where to get the hard drive images. And this is vastly depending on what kind of machine you're using. In this case, I'm going to be using this Macintosh Classic here to test this thing out with. So I had to find a Macintosh hard drive image. But because the BlueSCSI device here can work on almost anything that uses the SCSI interface, obviously there's going to be some caveats there, depending on if it's a 50-pin style, 25-pin like this, or Centronics. It just depends on which hardware version you get. These things can work with the Amiga with a specific type of expansion module. These can work with the Apple II GS with a specific type of expansion card. They can even work with IBM PCs, clones, and compatibles if you have the correct type of SCSI controller. So there are images for all those different things, plus these various other machines that can utilize SCSI devices, including mini computers and mainframes. But in this tutorial section, there is a website that you can click on that has pre-loaded and pre-made images for Macintoshes. And there's also some different links and stuff of how to make drive images using some different software and that kind of stuff, which we'll talk about in a completely different video. This video is mainly going to be trying out this BlueSCSI. So I just downloaded a hard drive volume image here and have it labeled correctly. There's some way you have to label it. I have this labeled HD00 underscore 512. I think I have it called Classic. So basically what the image is on here is a 2 GB image that has a installation of System 7.55, which I think is the last version that the Classic here can use. It's got a bunch of games, a bunch of applications, that kind of stuff. So we're going to just try this out. Okay, so we're going to make it look pretty and put it inside of the 3D printed case, which I don't know if I mentioned this before when I took this thing out of the baggie and was looking at the different components I needed to solder together. I'll admit, I'm not super impressed with the 3D print quality of this case. At least the top section. The bottom section looks really good. It's got nice stippling on it. It looks very well done. It's the top section here. It just doesn't snap on there like I think it should. In fact, it kind of looks a little haphazard on it. I mean, it does fit on there. It's not going to just fall apart, but it takes no effort at all to take it apart at all. Yeah, there's room for a USB cable. And I think I mentioned this before. I'm not a fan of this captive style or this passive style micro SD card slot where you just push the card in and you have to pull it out, the push-pull style. I much rather like the clicky style. I personally would have paid a couple extra bucks to have a clicky style one on these, especially with how close that is, because you almost can't get your finger in there to pull the SD card out. I mean, I can kind of with my nails, but it also would be a little better if it kind of popped out. But take the complaints with a grain of salt here. I mean, I'm not going to be too critical of a cosmetic thing as long as it functionally works. All right, plug it into the back of the Macintosh Classic into the SCSI port. I have the internal hard drive completely unhooked. The cable's not even there anymore. I mainly did that because the hard drive, when I was prepping for this video, made a very concerning noise. So it might actually be finally dying, which is a good reason why I got this one. So let's carefully turn it on since I got it exposed. Okay, see how fast this thing boots up. Taking a while because it has to load up all 4 megabytes of RAM. There's the cursor. Happy Mac. Welcome to Macintosh. Oh, that's a different opening. That looks like the Mac OS 8 and 9 startup thing. At least I'm pretty sure this is 755. Look at all the stuff it's loading up. Oh gosh. Okay, I didn't rename it. It says Mac Pack, which is the name of the hard drive image this came from. But yeah, we've got a bunch of stuff on here. And yeah, it's fully loaded up now. Oh, let's see what kind of cool stuff's in here. Okay, so about this Mac, we have Macintosh. System software, 1.470K used, total memory of 4K, so 4 megabytes. So this thing's using 1.4 megabyte of RAM total, just sitting here with all the stuff it loaded in. That's actually a lot of RAM usage. So if this had the stock 1 megabyte of RAM, this image might not work. Chooser, Fast Find, No Finder, After Dark, Control Panel, Extension Manager. What's in control panels? Like obviously this thing's running very slowly, but we have Macintosh Easy Open, Map, Memory, Tidy Menus, Window Shade. We have After Dark. So apparently, the Mac Pack here that I downloaded has a bunch of preloaded games and stuff. I want to see what's all on here. Okay, so I got really confused for a second as to why there was like 5 different system folders in here. So with the Mac Pack image that I downloaded, it's a preloaded 2 gigabyte image, like I said. But it has a really cool feature in that if you read through the documentation for it, you can actually select what system this image will boot to. So it natively boots to 755. That's because things like the SE30 can use that. The original SE, I think the Classic 2, Color Classic, the Pizza Box Macs like the Quadras and the Centruses can minimum boot 755. But because obviously the original Mac Plus won't have that much RAM, or the stock Mac Classic here might not have that much RAM, or any of the other ones, it might be better to use like a lower RAM requirement one. So that has systems 605 and 608, 701, 712, and 755. So basically there's a way apparently to switch between these drive images. Not sure if I'm going to mess with that right now in this video, but this is actually awesome. Well, this thing's from 1991, so let's try a game from 1991. This might be a bad idea though. We have Caesar, we have Cantaten, O2, Cello, Chuck Yeager's Air Combat, The Civil War, COVID, or Covert Action, COVID Action. Oh gosh. Dr. Macintosh, Dragon's Lair, which I don't think I could play on this because that I think requires color. Full Metal Mac, Full Metal Planet, Glider. We have a Lemmings 1.1. Will it run Lemmings? This is weird playing it in black and white, but this is so cool. Ooh, that's a little slow though. But then again, this is a Mac Classic, which has the standard 68,000 CPU. It's not the 68010, 2030, like the later one, like the, not later ones, the more powerful SE30 has, or anything like that. So obviously it's going to be a little slow. I don't know what the actual specs are for Lemmings, but it's running it. So it's running super slow though. Oh god, it's running way too fast. I can't click on it. Okay, that's kind of weird. If I have the caps lock down, it goes in like turbo mode. All right, so now I've got it restarted here. So as you saw, it was able to run a game. Obviously, it didn't run Lemmings super well. I couldn't control a lot of the Lemmings. I couldn't change anything about them. If caps lock is on, it basically puts it into like turbo mode and just runs Lemmings at like full speed. What other stuff is on here? We have some utilities. Let's try Spinometer 2.5. Okay, so there's Unknown Mac, 4 meg of RAM, CPU 68,000, no FPU, no color, standard AVD keyboard, version 58 of Apple Talk, and system version 755. Let's try Spinometer 3.23. For some reason, 2.5 really didn't do much. I wonder if that's just something that... Copyright 1993. Oh, this one might not run on here. Okay, so ROM size 256K at ROM, which is wrong. I think this is supposed to be 512K. Macintosh, 68,000, no FPU, no MMU, 4 meg of RAM. Username. But we have RAM tools, we've got printing tools, and networking tools. File exchange, remote access, browsers. But yeah, if I had some way of connecting to the internet with this thing, I could actually go on the internet with the Mac Classic. Fortunately, I don't have a way of doing that. Right off, I just don't have a way to do it. So yeah, as you can see, this drive image here, it's just fully loaded with stuff, which is perfect for getting these old Macs just back up and running, and this easily too. I just downloaded and copied over the images from the tutorial documentation and plugged it and plugged the SD card into the BlueSCSI here, plugged it into the device, into the computer, and it just booted first shot. It just worked. This is amazing. And this is actually really good because there's a lot of these Macintoshes of this era that the hard drives are, well, failing. Especially this one. This one, for the longest time, has been fine, but it finally made a weird noise today when I was prepping for this video, and I, in order to keep it from completely dying, I unplugged it. So it's actually running off of BlueSCSI. It's not even detecting the other drive at all. I could, in theory, what I could have done is I could set this SD card as, I could set the image in the SD card as logical unit 1, while the eternal one's 0, and I could copy stuff from the hard drive onto the SD card and preserve it. Not really going to, even if the hard drive is just fine and it just was, for whatever reason, made a weird noise, because there's just some personal information on there, and there's really not a good reason to keep it that way. Now, that being said, I do want to talk briefly about the difference between this one, the 25-pin external one, and the 50-pin internal one. So the external one here is really good for these Macintoshes, especially, I only have one working Macintosh now, but once I get that SE30 up and running, I'll have 2 of these Macintosh Classics, or of these 2 of these 68K Macs up and going. And with this, I can just unplug the BlueSCSI and plug into the other one, because I'm not going to use both at the same time when I only have one set of ADB keyboard and mouse. I can just switch it over, put a different drive image on it that's basically meant for the SE30, and have access to all these games and utilities that would really push the SE30 in a stock form to see what it can do. Or I can switch it back over to the Macintosh Classic here, which works phenomenally well, and I can use this to type maybe documents, goof around with some games that, you know, would just to see what a stock 68,000K system can do. Plug it into an Apple image writer too and print some stuff out, like with Print Shop and stuff like that. And I can just copy stuff over to an SD card and just get it to work. The external one's really good for basically these compact Macs, or most of the Macs anyway, that have the 25-pin external SCSI. Obviously, I think the Macintosh Plus, you have to do some internal modifications to get it to power and work correctly, but there's documentation for that everywhere of how to mod it, and it's actually not that invasive of a mod. The 50-pin internal version is a little bit different in that it would actually plug into the internal 50-pin port and actually just physically replace the hard drive. That actually has an extra feature that the external one here does not have, and that's called initiator mode. If you have the internal one, you can move a jumper over, plug the hard drive into the BlueSCSI itself using the same 50-pin cable, power up both devices, and initiator mode will actually image and copy the data from the physical hard drive and make an image of that and basically back up that image so you have a one-to-one copy of the original hard drive's image that you can then use as a screensaver. I did not know that. Anyway, you have a that you can just put back onto an SD card and just go back to using it as if it was the internal drive. And obviously it doesn't have to work with just Macs. It works with a variety of systems that can utilize the SCSI interface. Like I said, PC and PC clones, the Amiga with the correct expansion module, the Apple II GS with the correct module. I believe the Apple IIe can if you have the correct expansion card. There's a variety of mini computers that can use it, a plethora of machines that can use a BlueSCSI that it kind of just boggles the mind with how many devices both use SCSI and can use SCSI. So the big question is, would I recommend a BlueSCSI? Absolutely. Abso-frickin-lutely. If you have any compact Macs or any of the pizza box style Macs, or maybe you have a SCSI controller for a PC clone, or maybe you have the SCSI-based hard drive solution for the Amiga 500, 600, 1200, maybe you have the SCSI controller for an Apple II GS, this device will just, the external one, it depends on the controller, obviously. This just kind of just works. As long as the drive image is in the correct format and in the correct naming scheme, it'll just boot and work. Now, that being said, I can't really recommend one over the other. I have not tried a Zulu SCSI or an SD to SCSI device yet, so that I can promote one over the other. But with its ease of use, lower cost, and pretty much easy availability right now, BlueSCSI V2, regardless of where you get it on any of the websites, is a really good investment if you have any machine that can utilize SCSI. And its best use case is what I'm using it for here, which is a compact Mac. These internal SCSI drives die, the floppy drives can be faulty, and it's now just easier than heck to get these compact Macs back up and usable. And obviously, research whether or not you want the internal versus external one. Obviously, the internal one's harder to get access to once you put the SD card in, but they'll work right out of the box as well. The external ones you can move from machine to machine to machine, and you can just pull the SD card out and swap images. 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, of, you know, splitting hairs. Now, obviously, I'm going to be playing with this a lot more because there are some more methods on the documentation site that talk about how to make custom drive images for the compact Macs here, and I'm going to be trying those out in some different videos, making some custom hard drive images for the Macintosh Classic here, and seeing how easy and straightforward it is. Anyway, with that being said, thank you all so much for watching this video. Really hope you enjoyed this review of the BlueSCSI V2. I'm not specifically reviewing the one from Joe's Computer Museum. I'm just reviewing the BlueSCSI V2 in general, and that it's a really amazing device, and would highly recommend picking one up if you have any compact Macs that you have restored or are going to restore, or you want to just try out. They're a really simple, easy device. Obviously, any complaints I had about this particular one that I have, again, grain of salt with that. It's not the BlueSCSI as a whole. It's, you know, just the 3D cosmetic case, which obviously you don't have to use the case with it. I guess I was just complaining for the sake of complaining on that one. Again, take that complaint with a grain of salt. I don't design anything with 3D printing or have 3D printed anything ever, so I don't know what's involved with that. So I can't really complain about somebody's design because I don't design stuff. If you have any thoughts, comments, or questions about this particular device that I use, or where I got the drive images, or what images I use, put down in the comments, and I will talk about it in a future video where I downloaded them and got them. You'll be seeing a lot more of the BlueSCSI V2 here when I start custom making some drive images for this thing, because I do want to custom make a drive image specifically for the Mac Classic. The one I downloaded was just a all-encompassing Swiss Army knife style one. I kind of want to make one just for the Macintosh Classic. If there's any really fun games that you know that would function 100% perfectly well on the Macintosh Classic, because unfortunately when you Google Mac Classic games, for some reason Google decides that you're looking up classic Mac games and doesn't give you a good list, especially considering that this is a 68000 CPU and black and white screen. And if you have a BlueSCSI V2 or any of the other SD2SCSI devices, and you can actually give advice on which one's better for certain situations, please put it down in the comments or send them to me in an email, and I will make a video on that here in the future. I might not be able to physically test out the device, but I can at least voice out some of the emails and comments that I get. So, again, with that being said, thank you all so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.